Education is the key to reducing violence in our city. And I've said over and over again that there's four things that need to be accomplished through education. First and foremost is the element of reducing violence. The second element that I think is so important is reducing poverty. The third element I think is extremely important is growing a middle class. And the last one is the aspect of civic engagement. And that's exactly why I was visiting in the school today. As most of you know, I have stressed the importance of having ownership and having a balanced approach to addressing the problems that we have in this city. And I've talked about the importance of leadership and what leadership means in order to move this city forward. It is a combination of the plan that I'm putting out to you and leadership, which I believe will make a difference in reducing the violence in this city. In addition to that, I lay out very specifically how I'm going to pay for my plan. The first thing I talk about is the element, something that Councilman Wilson Good has done in terms of directing dollars to be moved over for the purpose of the school district budget. The second aspect that I've talked about is something that's being done in New York with Mayor Bloomberg and the Chancellor, where they set up a fund to raise $100 million from foundations, from the private sector, and others. And the third aspect, as most of you know, I've been chairman of the Appropriation Committee for 17 years, so I know a little bit about managing budgets. But the main thing is the priorities that we must have. Education is the key to transforming this city and reducing the question of violence. I've said if we do not do anything about violence, we will never move this city forward. And this education plan that I'm putting forward today talks about it from school by school, the needs of early childhood and the importance of early childhood, the class size reduction that I've talked about, dealing with the dropout rate, and classroom modernization. Those are the things that I think we need. But I'm saying to you this morning, different than all of my opponents, they will talk about what they have done. I can show specifically from my record versus the rhetoric. I have a long history in showing that additional money has come to the city of Philadelphia, as most of you know, with the city and state partnership, which has offered more options and choices to the people of the city of Philadelphia. Secondly, we have reduced the dropout rate. Thirdly, we have reduced the violence rate. More kids are going to college in the city of Philadelphia than ever before out of our public school system. Is there a lot more we need to do? The answer is yes. There's a lot of more things that we need to do. We need to take it to another level, and as I said to you, that's going to require leadership and people working together. I stand here today telling you that I'm prepared to lead this city and move this city forward. I'd like to thank you, and I'll take any questions if you have any questions.
You talked about this school and its role in your paperwork. You're talking about this school and it as an example of what you have done while the other guys have talked about various things. Talk a little bit about the role that you believe you have played and what credit you think you deserve for the state takeover and what it has done for schools in the city.
Well, I think that, as most of you know, there was only like 2 people in the legislature who were Democrats that voted for the city-state partnership. Only 2, Senator Williams and I. Most people in the city of Philadelphia complained that it was a problem. Today, you don't hear anybody here. Everybody's trying to take credit for what Jim Nevels and Paul Vallis has done today. We wouldn't have this school if we didn't have the city-state arrangement. We wouldn't have the school of the future, nor would we have the options and choices. So I led the charge, designed the bill, voted for the bill. In addition to that, we got over $300 million additional dollars. In addition to that, we got over $300 million that came to the city of Philadelphia education. There's not one single person who's running in the race who can tell you that they have delivered the additional money. There's not anybody who can tell you that all the school choices and options that are available today. As a matter of fact, there were people who fought against the idea of this kind of change. So I'm saying to you, we have had more new buildings, test scores have increased, violence has decreased, the dropout rate has decreased. There are other things that need to be done. But under this model, different than any place in the nation, there are far more choices and options available to our kids than never before. Particularly for poor families, particularly for families who didn't have it available before, there's not one person who can tell you that they had something to do in leading this charge. There's a lot of people who like to take credit for it, but I'm telling you, I specifically designed the plan in the legislation that I put out. In addition to that, I voted for it. In addition, I voted for the additional money that was needed to move this school district forward.
Right now, the mayor has an education advisory task force looking into possible regaining control of the school district later on. Is that something you would want to see happen if you were elected as mayor?
Well, I think that what we should really focus on is what works better. The question is it the city or state? It's not a question of who governs. It's a question of who works better for the children of this city. So I'm of the opinion, sort of like what Governor Rendell said. Governor Rendell says, if it's not broken, why mess with it? And I have that same position that he has. It is working, it's moving in the right direction. Now, let me be clear. The deficit should be resolved. So we should resolve that deficit. I know there's been people talking about that. But I'm prepared, when I go back to Harrisburg, to do whatever I can do to help this school district with any resources that it needs to move forward. Because it's been showing progress. And because it's been showing progress, we need to keep moving in the right direction. I think, unfortunately, not a lot of people know about the progress that's been shown. You only need to check the websites of the various schools in terms of where to move. We still got a long way to go. Kids are still not at the testing levels that they need to be. We still haven't gotten all of the violence that we need to move. We no longer can have battles between the school districts and City Hall. The mayor must work in sync with the school district, and we no longer can have finger pointing. We got to bring this city together and move the school district forward.
Your plan talks about reducing class size fairly significantly from 25 plus down to 22, and it says that with the majority of classes in the teens. Two questions. First of all, what kind of a price tag will there be for that? And second of all, if the majority of classes are in the teens, by definition, that means the minority would be well over the 22, and in fact, should be over 25 actually. So how do you make that work?
Repeat that last, let me start with that question.
If the current average is 25 plus, and you're going to take the average to 22 with, as your paperwork states, a majority of classes in the teens, given the most generous interpretation, that means 19. So the majority of classes average 19. For the overall average to be 22, that means the rest of those classes have to be above 25 to order to have the overall average be 22. Isn't that going backwards for some of these classes?
No, it's not going backwards, because this is an objective that we want to try to achieve for every classroom in the city of Philadelphia. And this is going to take a combination of three things. It's going to take a combination of the city, state, and the federal government. This is something about changing the priorities of this country. Look, we're spending billions of dollars in Iraq. We need to begin to make more investment in our cities in the city of Philadelphia. I said that when the President of the United States gave his State of the Union speech. I've said that if we're going to talk about moving these cities forward, we got to change the priorities. So city, state, and federal, changing priorities first. Secondly, the objective is to make sure every school district, every classroom is working at this number. If you look at the size here, they look like there was no more than 15 to 20 here. That makes sound education value to reduce that size. Now, what was the other question?
Well, the initial question was the price tag for reducing that. Presumably that means more teachers relative to the students.
No question about that. Like anything, like the same thing I said about the police department, it is an objective that we will work for. I will use my skill as a person who's been chairman of the appropriation committee to set the values of the budget. That is something that I will talk to the people about first. I will talk to the city council people, and then I will reorder and change the priorities. Just as Councilman Wilson Good is talking about the $100 million that will come out from the shift of property tax to the school district. That's $100 million that's going to the school district that was not there. In this year's budget, I'm going to tell you now, a little preview, you're going to find an increase in education this year from the governor. So between what Councilman Wilson Good is proposing, between the shift at the state level, between using the private sector, very similar to New York, talked about $100 million, it is that kind of combination. Look, if we're going to reduce violence in the city of Philadelphia, we're going to have to make a commitment to education. And we're going to have to do whatever it takes. So people will have to make a choice. I'm making a choice on the side of education.